My name is Max. I'm 36. I recently got some time off from work and decided to go back home to try and spend some quality time with my father that I don't usually see. I invited him to go on a camping trip. It was going to be nice to have some time with him, fishing, hunting, and just overall chilling in some of the most beautiful forests of our country. The next day, I picked up my father and we hit the road. We had our camping equipment on the back of my truck. I was so excited. When we arrived at our camping spot, we just put the equipment down, unfolded the tent, and went on our first walk, just to check for hunting and fishing spots. We found a nice lake, so we decided to go back, pick up the fishing rods, and went back to the lake to try to get some fish for tonight's dinner. We stood there all afternoon, just fishing and sharing old stories. My father always enjoyed speaking, so most of the time, I just listened. He even remembered a story about an imaginary friend I had growing up. "What was his name?" my father asked. "His name was Josh," I said. "Yeah, that's it. You spent all the time talking to him." And then he proceeded to speak about other things. We already had some beers and managed to pick up some fish, so we went back to camp before nightfall came. We were around the fire, eating, drinking some more, and telling stories of the past to each other. In a moment of nostalgia, I said something that bothered him. I said, "I wish Mom could be here." My father went from smiling and having fun to a very serious face. He got up and said, "I think it's time for us to go to sleep. We should wake up early tomorrow." I was very confused with his reaction. I knew that he was affected by my mother's death, but I still liked remembering her and talking about her. She died years ago when I was still a teenager, in a car crash. I never had a way of dealing with this. I believe this was the moment I created my imaginary friend, Josh. But I decided not to let this moment ruin the trip, so I went to sleep. The next day, my father and I went for an early walk. It's an amazing feeling to walk in the forest in the early morning. The smells are different. The sounds. It's just breathtaking. My father was a little silent today. Very different from the day before. We kept walking some more, but he clearly was affected by something, so I asked him, "Are you all right, Dad?" To which he answered, Yes, I'm just feeling a little under the weather today. Maybe we should go back to camp and rest for a while before we do something else." I agreed with him, and we went back to camp. Later that night, while near the fire, we were silent, just looking at the fire, when I heard a noise from behind my father. I asked him, "Did you hear that?" "Hear what?" my father answered. I shook it off and said, It's probably nothing. Forest is full of life. There are noises everywhere." Later inside the tent, while sleeping, I heard something outside. I went to investigate, and when I put my head outside, I saw a man in front of our fire. I frightenedly asked, "Excuse me, sir, do you need help?" In a very familiar voice, the man asked, "Why so formal, Max? Come here and join me. Did you forget about me?" Shocked and frightened, I slowly went near the fire. A feeling of horror took over me as I recognized the man as being Josh, my imaginary friend. I thought he was the fruit of my imagination. There, don't be frightened. Just sit with me and keep me company," he said. "Josh," I said, "you remembered. I'm happy to hear," he said with a sinister smile. He added something else. "You know what you have to do, Max." After saying these words, he vanished, and my father asked from inside the tent, "Max, who are you talking to? There's no one here. Go back to sleep." "Yes, Dad," I said. The next day, I suggested my father and I go to a familiar place I used to visit in the past. He said yes, and we started walking. I was in a very good mood, as was my father. When we arrived, my father told me, "This place looks familiar, but this isn't a good place to hunt, and the lake is very far away from here. Why did you want to come here? This was the place where you killed her, I said, and pushed him up against a tree. What are you doing, Max? Let me go, or I swear to God. You'll do what, huh? Beat me like you did every day I lived in that house? You killed Mom with your drinking, and then you beat the shit out of me every single day of my childhood. She's dead because of you. The second I said this, Josh appeared near me and said, Do it, Max. He's guilty. He killed her. He doesn't deserve to live. My father told me I was a good-for-nothing child and that I deserved every beating I took growing up. I smiled and said, That's what I needed to hear. I stuck my hunting knife through his back and watched him die in front of me.